Hi again. I've got the test results from the blood tests we did in the last video. So today we're going to look at what we do with them and how we make use of them. The first thing to do is get hold of the test results, of course. I'm fortunate that my GP surgery makes use of an app called Manage My Health. There are other applications that do exactly the same thing. I'm aware that different surgeries in New Zealand use different applications, and around the world there's probably even more applications. But in my case, I use Manage My Health to get my information. Just a quick look at the dashboard here, and we can book an appointment through this application or request a repeat subscription and look at our health records. And occasionally I'll email doctors using that. More often than not, I'm just looking at my health records, and occasionally I request a repeat subscription through here. So if we go under health records on the left here, we've got lab results, and that's what we're interested in. The one criticism I guess I'd have of Manage My Health is that lab results don't get uploaded to Manage My Health until the doctors have viewed them and passed them on. Now, I understand the medical reasons for that, but in my situation where I want to look at my blood tests on a regular basis, that can be challenging until I discovered how this worked, and until I got under the renal unit in Wanganui. There were some months where I wasn't getting the results. Now, in fairness, I wasn't chasing them as hard as I do now, but as an example, you can see the 8th of May, which was my blood test that you saw me do. I've only got one blood test result back. Now, there should be quite a few. This one is the post-dialysis blood test. So none of the multiple pre-dialysis blood tests have come through here. Fortunately for me, I can get in hold of the renal clinic, and one of the nurses there kindly emailed me through the test results. But just so you can see what we're looking at here, if I expand one of these, it'll give me the test results in here, and it gives me the actual result and then the goal for a healthy result. So that's Manage My Health. Once I've got all that information, what I do, just switch to the other app, is I go into this app called Blood Test Results, funnily enough. Now, for a long time, I didn't follow my blood test results as well as I could, and part of the reason, although not all of it, but part of the reason, was that in order to see any trends, I had to go back and look at last month's results and the month before and the month before, and then work it all out. At one point I did try and set up an Excel spreadsheet with charts to look at it, but it wasn't mapping things as well as I could, and that could well be more to do with my lack of Excel skills than Excel's capabilities. But then I had this bright idea of finding something that someone else had done, because I knew there'd be other people wanting to follow their blood test results. Now, this application is a free app. I downloaded it from Microsoft's store. I don't have anything to do with the people who wrote this app. This may well be other apps out there which are more complex. If you know of any, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. I'd love to give them a go. But in the meantime, what we're looking at here is how we display the results. So in this case, we can only display one at a time. So you may recall me talking about my EGFR, which is how well your kidneys are functioning. And you can see if we go back to February 23, I'm sitting at about 16, and I came up again in September, and then I took a dive. This is when I was in hospital, and from then on, over time, my EGFRs just dived. Remembering that once I started dialysis, the EGFR would naturally start to decrease also. So a couple of things I want to show you from the tests we did in the last video. The first is the pre-test for urea. This is how we tell how well the dialysis is actually working. So if we look at urea here, these two red lines are the healthy goal lines. So clearly I'm well above it. However, my last test puts the urea at just under 20. Now if we go to post, the post test is well inside those two red lines. In fact, it's down, I'd say that's about 5. So this tells us that the dialysis, when I'm doing it, is working well. From before dialysis, where I have quite an unhealthy level of urea in my blood, to post-dialysis, where it's almost middle of the road. That's a great thing. So about here, which was February this year, my potassium was getting a bit high, and so the decision was made to put me on a different dialysis fluid, which had a bit less potassium in it. So you can see that over time my potassium's just dropped like a stone. Phosphate's the other one I wanted to show you. So you can see here my phosphate's been quite high for a long time. At around about this point, where it got back up again to 2.5, I was put on what are called phosphate binders. So you eat them before your meal, and they bind with the phosphate to stop it getting into your bloodstream. If you have too much phosphate in your bloodstream, it can actually leach the calcium out of your bones, which means you end up with brittle bones, which obviously is not a good thing. So at this point, they put me on, actually it probably would have been a bit earlier, they put me on 2 binders a day, so morning and night I was having them. And then it continued to be high, so they put me on 3 binders, so morning, noon and night. Now, you can manage the level of phosphate in your blood to a degree by your diet, but the problem is that when you're on dialysis, you need to keep up your protein, because dialysis leaches the protein out of your system. And anything with protein has got phosphate. So it's a balancing trick. There's not much we can do about it, except to use these binders. But the good news is that when I went onto those 3 binders, and with pretty much no change in my diet, the phosphate levels in my blood went down to a fairly healthy level. Now, I'm not sure what happened there. I'm not sure if it's something that just went on in my body, or I did have a change in diet that I've forgotten about or something, but I'm back onto 2 binders. So that's how we apply the blood test result. Now, it's really important, at least I think it's really important, and I'm going to go back to, just log back in, sorry. Going to go back to here, because I just want to say I think it's really important to stay on top of your medical condition, especially when you're as unwell as my body is. But I've learnt things through reading these notes that medical people, doctors, nurses, hadn't mentioned to me. Now, I don't know why. It may have been that they all thought someone else was going to tell me, or that for them it's just not that important. For me, I like to know what's going on. So, for example, one of the natural progressions of polycystic kidneys can be that the cysts appear on other organs. Now, I knew that might happen, but I wasn't aware it had happened until I got some scan results that said there were cysts on the liver. No one had mentioned this to me. I did try and find out something about it, and then actually went to one of the health professionals who look after me and said, hey, so what's likely to be the symptoms or the consequences of this happening. At this point, those consequences are pretty minor. They're pretty much carrying on what's happening now. So maybe that's why they didn't think it worth telling me. But I do think it's worth keeping on top of what's happening, asking questions. Always ask questions when you're talking to health professionals. Just know what's going on as best you can. Now, no one's got it all sussed, even the health professionals. But I'm learning more all the time about what these blood test results mean, what other things that are going on, symptoms and so on might mean. It's an ongoing, never-ending learning curve, but it's worth continuing to learn, because the more you know what's going on, the better you can look after yourself. So that's my personal opinion, of course. You're absolutely entitled to a different opinion. I think that's about it from me for the blood test results. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoyed it or found it interesting, I'd appreciate it if you could hit like. If you want to know more about what it's like living with end-stage renal failure, then go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.